Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fall Extravaganza Trifecta reading / debut party. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. If you can post comments from where you are, we'll see them in our little chat window. I'm showing our Fairwood Press website today, and we are honoring 3 wonderful writers today. Here's their books that are just coming out to do literally today. 3 on the same day. Genesis X by B.J. Graff, The Best of James Van Pelt by, of course, James Van Pelt, and Living Forever and Other Terrible Ideas by Emily C. Scofton. And so I'm going to be bringing them on up, and we're going to get things rolling in a second here. Just got some people getting in here, getting a little bit of time for some people to find us. I am actually in my home, but not really. It's an optical illusion, everyone. I'm going to remove that for a second. This actually is my living room and some of my bookshelves, but I am actually at my school because the internet is blazing and awesome here, and I've got a green screen, so I'm just bringing my home to me here in school. So this is awesome. We're going to... Okay, what am I? It says I'm stop sharing. Okay, I'm going to hide that. All right. Didn't matter to you guys, but I was seeing stuff. There we go. Forgot to put that up there because I'm always forgetting something. I'm going to bring in our guests today, and let's see. Where are you guys in there? I'm looking for them down there in the stream. Here we're going to go in left to right order from the books that I showed you. We'll bring in Beverly and up Emily and Jim Van Pelt. There they are. Wave to everybody here. All right. You guys ready to get rolling here shortly? Let me throw us into a little bit. Oh, hey, now we got squares.
Sure.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's like Jeopardy. Yeah.
It's like Jeopardy. That's right. Or the Brady Bunch missing some
Hollywood squares.
Hollywood Square.
Hollywood Square.
Yes.
We need a middle square. Anybody want to come join us for the middle square? Anybody? I'll invite you. No? Okay. This is just a reminder. If you didn't see our open, if you are on Facebook, watching us on Facebook, sometimes Facebook says you've got to make sure that you've got access. And if you go to that URL on the bottom, it just says here, connect us and give us access, and you're fine. Then you can still comment, but otherwise you just be an icon and we won't see your name. No problem with YouTube. I think that's pretty standard there. So let us know you're here. If I put something in the chat, it might come in twice because I'm streaming to YouTube and Facebook. So our little test earlier, I was getting two at a time. Oh well. So how are you guys doing? Tuesday, pub day. How you feeling?
Good. Ready.
Is it any different?
Yes. Happy book birthday. And I felt like, this book I've been thinking about it so long that it makes the gestation of an elephant seem like that of a mayfly. That's how I felt. I was like, yay, it's finally out.
Okay, I have never heard that comparison before.
So you feel you've given birth to an elephant? Is that
well, yeah, at least in how long it took. That was a long time, a very long time. So I'm very excited. So yeah, glad to be here.
So because yeah, absolutely. So Beverly and Emily both have debut books today. Their first books. Beverly, you published a few stories before this, particularly featuring the same character in the novel. And then, Emily, you've written enough stories to have a collection.
And they fill a book, yeah.
Yeah, and you're still selling, right? And it's job security for me. You keep selling. In fact, didn't you have another story that just came out today too? So
sure,
you have a book today and a story out today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feast or Famine.
Yeah, Feast or Famine. And then there's Jim, who publishes a story every other hour. Which we yes, the best, as Jim likes to say, the best of James Van Pelt. ... So far. Yes. But when you get a best of, I'm going to show all these books, but when you get a best of that's already thicker than most regular books, it's just like, that this was after paring down, right? I mean, how many stories?
10 stories out that I really wanted to put in.
Well,
So,
you
like,
have to trim a lot more than 10 stories.
altogether?
How many
Right.
stories have you published? How many stories have you published?
About 170.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Something
If
to
you two-
aspire to.
Yeah, if you hurry, you can catch up.
Yeah.
So what I love about Jim's too is if you take, because some people may have not seen this, is the actual book inside is
Nice.
also
Nice.
has the image from Gabriel Godstados. He said, "Yeah, absolutely, let's go for it." And he took a piece that he had online that we loved, but he said, "Oh, that was just like for Facebook and like little splash things. So let me make you something different for the book cover for nice." Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And then we have Emily Scofton's "Living Forever and Other Terrible Ideas," which is a great title. Sells the book right
Yes.
there, right? And look, you have it. Oh, that's not going to work. She can point behind her. That's their little cover behind there. There you are. Product placement. That's right. Cover design by John D. Barry. So, and then we have Genesis X also. Whoa! Oh, it's my
It's
green.
green.
That is hilarious. Oh wait,
that's right.
actually kind of
green out, right?
yeah. That's actually kind of cool.
It is wooden.
That's actually kind of really cool. Wouldn't it be great to have like
I like that. It just makes it look like a hologram, right?
Yeah.
That's
right? It's like people in your book, right? You just
very good for the book.
just make futuristic. Yes, and then of course, so this will be the same thing. This cover comes off, and there's also more green, more green, which you can't see, but you can see it on Bev's copy. If you took the dust jacket off there. Now this one came out.
You take it off here.
Yeah. We were doing a trade. We contracted for a trade with her agent, Sandy Lou, from, what was the agency? She's got a new agency now.
Yeah. Sandy
but,
now with Bookworm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just kind of last minute said, if we do a hardcover, because it's a debut novel, and if we make some of the ones through Fairwood signed and numbered, I don't know, this is somebody's, number 12 here, then we can sell those for a little extra. It'll also be available, if you order it online, you can get it, it just won't be signed and numbered. So all the pre-orders are out for this one, except, even the last ones that came in the last couple of days. Jim's, we've got most of them are out, but some of them we're waiting for the next batch. As you can imagine, in the days of COVID and getting copies in waves, and we got yours and Bev's, we had to ship to you. We didn't do signature pages, so the books went right to the author. They had to wait forever to get them, printer slowdowns there, and then they got them and they shipped them back to me, and then I shipped them out to you guys who are waiting for them. So the ones who've ordered in the last week may still won't get yours yet. So, but hang on. And these hardcovers are coming are going to be in tomorrow's Veterans Day, so I can't actually put them in they just got on my doorstep last night, so they'll have to go out Thursday because holiday tomorrow for those pre-orders. So thanks for your patience if you're watching and you're one of those folks who pre-ordered a signed one. So do you guys want to talk about a little bit about the difference between a debut, the feelings, all the feels about a debut book and versus, is it change for you, Jim, every book? Is it like a hum experience or what? And I think maybe I'll just let you guys talk for a little bit.
It does not change at all. Every story, when I start it and the page is blank, feels like an impossible task. Every story sale seems like, well, that's the last time that'll happen. And every book that has come in, it's just amazing to get that box on the porch from the UPS and to open it up and to hold the physical manifestation of all that thinking. It reminds me of being a little kid. I did this when I was like 8 or 9 or 10 or something. I wandered through the library to see what two authors my books would be shelved between when I wrote them. And it was Jack Vance and A.E. Van Vogt. And I thought it was really funny because I went to Barnes & Noble after my first book came out, and sure enough, it was shelved between Jack Vance and A.E. Van Vogt.
Nice.
Very, very.
Who are you shelved? Who will you guys be shelved between?
No idea. I have to go say. I think everybody's online now, so I don't even know if their bookshelves or their bookstores still open near me. They're all closing like crazy.
I'll have to go into
That's true.
your place and take a look. I haven't been to a bookstore in months because COVID and everything. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So debut experience. What's it like for you guys?
Well, it's obviously amazing. I've wanted to have a book published since I can remember. So it's the culmination of a dream. And of course, like everything else that's happened this year, it's also kind of like the funny alternate universe version of the dream where I'm sitting in my house in front of my dying plant instead of actually being at Third Place or University Bookstore doing an event. This is super great, but I just really wish I could see the faces of the people who are out there. But the book, I love it. It's amazing. It feels really good. Yeah.
Well, and I have to say, I mean, every step has been great, even copy editing and stuff, having to do that and learning what I don't know about commas, always a humbling experience.
Oh my God, you too?
So, but even that was fun. So I figure, it's all gravy as far as I'm concerned. It's been a terrific experience so far. I completely agree with you, Emily. I wish we could meet in person and, be at conferences and all that. But so it's not the best year for a debut book, but the experience has still been fantastic. So I really feel very, very fortunate. And, thank you to Patrick again for leading me through, because what I didn't know is a lot. And I really appreciate all the help. And it's great to meet you guys, start to get a sense of a little community here. I find that very exciting. So, I'm just thrilled. So.
Awesome. So we should probably get, since we got 3 of us to read, we're going to each read about 10 minutes, and between each of those, talk a little bit more and to give people a break. And again, anytime, folks, if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them either at the end or if it seems appropriate time. So, Bev, I think we drew lots, and you said you were going to go first, right?
Right.
According to my notes. So let me introduce officially Beverly Graff, publishing under BJ Graff, the author of Genesis X. Yay, there's her book. She's going to be reading from the trade paperback, right?
I am.
I can't show it because
I didn't want to crack the hardback. I'm going to just
yes. She's published a number of stories. 3 of them feature the detective Eddie Piedmont from this novel, and the Sisters in Crime anthologies, and several others. She's an adjunct professor of film studies and classical mythology, and she's worked for many years as VP of development for Abilene Pictures, which you may have seen some of. What was the Frequency?
Yeah, Primal Fear was our first feature. We did a lot of TV, NYPD Blue, things like that. And then, Primal Fear, Frequency, Fallen with Denzel Washington, and then Fracture with Ryan Gosling and Tony Hopkins, and a TV show that we only got to the pilot, which was NYPD 2069, but that got me thinking about the police in the future.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well,
changes with tech.
Yes. Well, Beverly lives in Los Angeles with her family and a menagerie of rescue animals, and she's just secured a deal to get a new English Springer Spaniel, which is close to my heart. My family grew up with those, coming on Friday for her. So we're going to let Beverly take over here. You ready to go? We'll all mute and let you let you go.
Okay, so imagine that I have the voice of Jason Isaacs, who can do absolutely any dialect and everything, that sort of thing. So here we go. Chapter 1, 2041 Los Angeles, California. Ordinarily, a stripper's fatal overdose wouldn't have landed in our laps. LAPD's Homicide Special Division, a select downtown unit with citywide jurisdiction encompassing 468 square miles and 21 communities, handled only the city's most complex, brutal, and high-profile murders. But that first Thursday in October, my handy pinged and the tired face of Lieutenant Rodriguez appeared, floating in the L-shaped space of the glove phone between my thumb and forefinger. "Sorry, detectives," Rodriguez said. "Looks like another hype offed herself." His sigh underlined what all us cops knew. Drug overdoses and gang-related homicides were at an all-time high in the city. If NoHo didn't have every detective out on call already, I wouldn't make you guys do the drive. But you know the area, Piedmont. I nodded. Before I got bumped up to Homicide Special downtown, I'd done a tour in North Hollywood. So, 2 hours after the dead woman had been found in her tub, my partner, Shin Miyaguchi, and I were inching north off the 170 freeway onto the Magnolia Boulevard exit in North Hollywood. "No wonder the city's so screwed up," Shin said, shaking his shaved head as he watched a stoner prophet preach to the Jaguars and Lexuses waiting to leap ahead at the green. "What, the addicts," I said, "or the apocalypse?" I jerked my chin at the homeless guy wearing a Mood t-shirt that flashed, "It is written, the end is near, pray." The part about it being written, Shin flashed me his gap-toothed grin. God should have streamed a visual if he wanted people to catch on. Minutes later, we were slamming the car doors shut in front of a boxy high-rise near the Red Line metro station on Lancashire. Only one slack-jawed teen wandered down the street, aimless as a broken toy, that vacant stare of the plague-stricken in his eyes. Nobody knew why Alzheimer's suddenly started to hit the young. All we knew is that about 5 years back it did. And while Alzheimer's isn't contagious, there's no treatment for it either, let alone a cure. But every intersection was a sea of green crosses promising relief. The acrid smell of burning sage and ganja hit my nose hard. "Don't you know," Shin said, "burning skunk weed's supposed to purify the spirit or something, Eddie. Purification stinks," I grinned. Inside the building, security cameras loomed from on high in the hallway corners, cheap units put in to scare away low-rent burglars. Outside Unit 313, black letters on yellow hollow crime scene tape screamed "Keep Out" in 4 languages, Spanish and English chasing Chinese and Korean characters round and round. "Detective Piedmont Miyaguchi," I said, badging the uniform as we walked through the tape. The warning rippled and vanished, reassembling as soon as we passed. "Robbery homicide?" As soon as he'd spotted our gray suits on the perimeter, first officer on site, Jesus Velasquez, had scurried over, the green light of his helmet cam twinkling. "What do we have?" Shin asked the P1, groaning as he leaned over to slip paper booties on over his size 10 brogues. "Looks like accidental overdose." Velasquez cocked his head towards the bathroom opposite. No sign of forced entry. DB's in the bathtub. Brittany Devonshire, 27, 1 prior for soliciting. With squat fingers, he handed me the plastic bag holding the dead woman's California driver's license. No family. Mother was an addict. Died from COVID-19 during the 2020 pandemic. No father or siblings on record. I stared at the hollow photo. Brittany Devonshire's skin was white as rice paper. Her big brown anime eyes, framed by hair like a red flame, stared back at me. "Another system kid?" "Left social services at 18, Velasquez confirmed with a nod. "She was an exotic dancer at the Sandy Beaches Gentlemen's Club for the past 3 years. My turn to nod. I'd spent a year in the system myself. Not a pleasant memory, but I'd landed on my feet. Brittany Devonshire hadn't been so lucky. "Who called it in?" Shin said. "Next door neighbor, name's Ava Wu. Officer Velasquez gestured towards the open door of the apartment. She had a key. She's got the Vic's cat, too. Directly across the hall stood a dazed Asian woman of indeterminate age, cradling a morbidly obese cat in her arms. The cat's talking collar kept repeating, "Meow, I'm Cocoa Puff," over and over, each time reciting a phone number that matched the number on the driver's license. I guessed the recorded voice belonged to the victim, too, a hollow echo of the now dead girl with no family. Wu and the deceased traded off on cat care, Officer Velasquez read from his notes. Brittany told Mrs. Wu she was going on vacation last night, so the old lady stopped by around 9 this morning to look after the cat. That's when she found the body. Through the open door, I saw the neighbor across the hall absent-mindedly shaking her head. The cat's yellow eyes flashed and his tail swished a warning. Shin and I shared a glance. "Your call," he said. "I'll take the body." "Why do I even ask?" Shin said. "I get the plump old neighbor, you get the girl." "Dead girl," I mumbled to Shin's retreating back. He ambled off across the hall. "The log," I said, turning back to Officer Velasquez. "You call SID in the coroner?" "Coroner's en route," Velasquez said, eyes suddenly locked on his toes. "Call SID," I said as I walked the place. Maybe it's what it looks like. Maybe not. Don't lock yourself into a theory till the facts are in. Officer Velasquez, you found her phone? Not yet. That was odd. Keep looking. Brittany Devonshire's apartment was a one-room studio with thin walls and low ceilings. At 6'2", I felt the roof pressing down on us. There was a big open living area with a kitchenette and bath off to the side. No framed family photos, digital or old school. No knickknacks graced the shelves or countertops. The place was sparsely furnished. It read like Ms. Devonshire had been marking time, not really living there. And the place was very neat for a junkie. Too neat. No half-empty containers of peanut noodles or pizza boxes strewn about. No wreath of scum and mold in a sink piled high with dirty dishes. On the sofa bed opposite a wall screen television, jeans and a green silk blouse were carefully draped over two little factory-issue throw pillows. A partially crumpled travel brochure announcing the launch of civilian trips to the moon next month stuck out from under an e-reader on the floor. Next to the brochure stood a pair of black ankle boots. Nice boots, huh? Velasquez said. My girl would go for those big time, till she found out where they came from. I popped my head into the bathroom. The sickly sweet vanilla aroma rode the wave of voided bowel and bladder stench, pooled in the cramped space like a fetid swamp. Nothing lies as still as the dead. Wearing only an untied green silk robe and a thong, the redhead lay on her back. Her legs jutted awkwardly, half out of the empty tub. A marionette dropped suddenly by a bored puppeteer. The belt used to tie off her arm was still knotted round her left bicep. One green satin slipper dangled off her motionless right foot. At first glance, the redhead's body showed the perfection of a porn star, surgically sculpted and hairless. As I stared, however, the little imperfections beneath the artificial surface began to reveal themselves in death's grisly striptease. The chipped, peach-colored nail polish, chewed cuticles, the callus on the middle finger of her left hand, the tiny pale worm of scar tissue circling the aureole of a breast. In life, Brittany Devonshire had been beautiful, even if some of her attractions were man-made. Now her auburn hair already had that flat, dull look of the dead. No sign of the identity barcode I expected to see tattooed on her wrist, though. Standard issue since Homeland Security made the embedded chips near tamper-proof in 2030. However, a flick of my blacklight pen revealed the barcode hiding in plain sight. She had the upgrade, invisible without ultraviolet light. Brittany Devonshire's once luminous skin now looked like sallow wax. Death bleeds light along with the breath from the living. I peered at the single fresh needle mark on the woman's left forearm, just below the knotted belt, and at the older tracks on her hips peeking out from under her thong. On the rim of the sink, next to a tube of extra whitening toothpaste, stood a glass holding a toothbrush and a set of weirdly shaped scissors. There was a toilet wedged between the sink and tub. On the closed toilet lid, a single e-cigarette lay in an ashtray crammed full of lipstick-stained empties, vanilla vapor. A set of works was propped up next to the ashtray, a pinprick of blood drawn up inside the syringe. Under the spike lay a sodden wad of Kleenex with greenish crystals tangled in the fibers. Green ice, I spat. The synthetic opioid was twice as potent as fentanyl, itself 50 times stronger than heroin. Manufactured in Mexico and China, dealers mixed the drug with heroin. The doses were erratic, fatalities weren't, and green ice was flooding the streets of the city. I'd seen its epic fail crashes firsthand, courtesy of Eddie Piedmont Sr., another slave of the Green Angel, and not exactly my nominee for Father of the Year. Outside the door, the voice of the coroner's assistant announced her arrival as she signed the e-log. A minute later, Dr. Emily Bogardus was leaning over the tub beside me. The belt left the only ligature mark, the dark-haired coroner's assistant said, echoing my own conclusions as she knelt down by the lip of the tub and examined the body. No obvious external trauma or sign of a struggle. A skinny SID tech named Marco signed in after Bogardus. He did a cursory recording of the scene with his handy. The image of the dead redhead shimmered in the glove phone's L-shaped space between his thumb and forefinger before vanishing. Marcos started in on evidence collection, bagging the set of works with long latex fingers. Check for prints on the tub too, plus the light switches here and at the door, I said, and get a reading on the microbial cloud before anybody else walks through. Marcos arched his left eyebrow but nodded. Everyone who enters a space leaves telltale markers behind, a microbial fingerprint we can read, but departmental budgets are tight and overdoses common. A microbial reading isn't the norm for an overdose. Shin was back from talking to the neighbors. Here's something he said. According to Mrs. Wu, the deceased just lost her job at the club where she danced. Fired, I asked. Shin nodded. But Mrs. Wu said Brittany wasn't all that broken up about it. Shin paused, cracking his knuckles. Really? I shot my partner a look, then glanced back at the dead girl splayed out in the tub. Shin walked back to the living room and picked up Brittany's e-reader. What about the hall security cameras? Marco said after a moment. We haven't checked the memory yet. Sham cams, I said, referring to the fake hall units spotted on the way in. We won't get anything off them. Nothing from the canvas either, Shin added. Nobody knows anything. The cat's talking collar said more than the neighbors. He exhaled a long hiss of unsurprised disappointment. Anything else you can tell us? I asked Dr. Bogardus, the coroner's assistant. Tracks here too. She directed my gaze from that single fresh needle mark to skin between the dead woman's toes. Old tracks. As I crouched down beside the tub, face to face with Emily Bogardus, two bright red spots the size of Yakima apples appeared on her cheeks. They blazed a brighter shade of crimson as I held her gaze. She looked away, smiled, then glanced back at me, a sidewise glance, head tilted. Emily was interested in more than her work. Before I met Joe, my live-in girlfriend, I would have gone for it. Now, I just smiled politely. Emily pointed at the darkened skin on the underside of the corpse where blood had pooled. From the liver, I'm guessing she injected herself and fell backwards from her seat on the lid of the tub. Emily's voice was all business again. Her smile faded along with the opportunity. We won't know for sure till after the cut, but it sure looks like accidental overdose. Shin nodded. Maybe not, I said. What then? Emily's eyes narrowed, her black brows drawing together like the wings of a crow. Suicide? If she offed herself on purpose, Eddie, Shin said, rifling through Brittany's e-reader, why lay out that outfit on the bed? Not exactly funeral clothes. I pointed to the tracks under her thong. Why would a stripper who's careful to shoot up between her toes or anywhere else it won't show put the spike in her arm all of a sudden? Junkies will do anything for a high, Shin said. She just lost her job. Poor kid was looking for a way out. She found it. But this hype was left-handed. I pointed to the weirdly shaped pair of scissors on the sink and the callus on her left middle finger. So why didn't she shoot up her right arm? Maybe she couldn't find a vein, Shin said, peering at the dead woman's arms. Looking for the collapsed veins, a commonplace of the addict's life. Then we should see recent tracks on her right arm, I said. But that now yellowing skin was clean. Well, Instatox tests positive, Marcos said, holding up the little disposable scanner to the light. She has a ton of green ice in her. When's the cut? I asked. Emily Bogardus shrugged. Monday. There were 4 bodies ahead of yours cooling in the fridge this morning, courtesy of the Zetas. Her tone was cool, too. Help me move her, will you, Marcos? As Marcos helped shift the body forward, the dead girl's silk robe fell to the side. Hold it, I said. A fresh tattoo nestled just below the small of Brittany's back. So fresh, little scabs of clotted blood dotted the vivid green and indigo design like a macabre cartoon in a graphic novel. Her tramp stamp featured strands of silk twisting round a lotus flower in the letters L and E. What's that, Marco asked. Gang or a cult tat? He leaned in and captured a close-up on his glove phone. A derma ad, I said. Ms. Devonshire's been selling her skin in more ways than one. Emily Bogardus nodded. Lotus Eaters. It's a pot shop. Boutique, not your typical low-rent place. Yeah? I grinned at her. So I've heard, Bogardus said with an answering grin. Once the deceased was loaded onto the gurney, headed for the morgue, I followed Shin's shaved head out onto the street. I'll file the report now, Shin said. Cause of death, OD, accidental or suicidal, pending the coroner's report. And one more system kid is tossed out like a piece of used Kleenex. Not so fast. Shin glanced at me. Eddie, no. Come on, we'll swing by Sandy Beaches first, I said. Be in and out in no time. The strip club, seriously? Shin's voice had that strained quality, a tone I've heard before, so I flashed him a reassuring smile. Don't you at least want to know why they canned the girl? That's it. Okay, that's chapter 1.
Yeah. Oops, I got you guys muted. Hold on. I mean, you can do it yourself too. There we go.
Yay.
Chapter 1.
Great. I'm unmuted.
I muted you. Cool. Like, how many times have you read that, Bev? Not even like in reading, but like over, you know.
You
like,
don't want to know.
Because I've read it at least.
Yeah. God, I don't know. I'm trying to think back when I started the story. I mean, the initial idea came to me so long ago. I was younger than Emily, so that was a while back, but a long time ago. But it took me just a long time to get to it and stuff. So yeah, I'm happy it's finally real.
As a fellow teacher, I know how that is. It's like finding that time, that creative energy after coming back from the classroom, even these remote classrooms, which actually sometimes is even worse.
That's it. Yeah. Many nervous
Like
students, seniors trying to get into grad school and all this, and, and people just trying to get through. So this term.
So you've been you kind of came up from the mystery crowd. You just spent a lot of time in the mystery crowd and mystery conventions, and you have some fairly famous mystery writers blurbed your book. And how did that all start for you, as far as getting involved in mystery? And I love the blend, because that's what I love too, science fiction mystery.
Yeah. Well, I think partly because also in film, we worked in the police procedural and crime stuff. We did a lot of thrillers and crime movies in development. I read an awful lot of scripts dealing with that kind of thing. And then this particular story, if you go deeper and you read on, you'll see the Greek myth will start to pop more and more and more. And that's the idea sort of came to me, and I realized, well, I had to do it as a cop story, and he's got to be at the top of his game, starting out. So I thought I'd mix that, and certain bits of the technology demand to be in the future. And so I thought it was a nice blend of mythology and sci-fi and police procedural. So kind of came together that way. I mostly read in the classics. I'm back in the 5th century, and maybe I'll dip into the 4th century or some Roman stuff. So I've been trying to come into the 20th and 21st century, and I my bookshelves look like yours. I stacked up, and I've got huge stacks of stuff I want to read, and newer things. And I love fantasy too, so there are some things there. But this particular story, the nature of the story itself demanded that kind of mix of genres.
Well, I saw a lot of that when I very first read the book. I saw some of the great connections, and then I missed a whole bunch of others. When I remember going like, holy crap, my brain was dead. Apparently, it's like I actually teach that particular myth. It's like, oh gosh, and I was like, bing, bing, all the lights are popping on. So yeah, it's nice. It's cool if you see it happening. It's like got your little illusion detector on. So
yeah. Well, that's good. And I'm glad it works even if you don't, because I know a lot of people. I know a lot of my students, until they take mythology, have no idea, and that's partly what interests me. The way, in my sense, these old patterns and old stories are constantly reverberating around us, and not only in pop culture. I mean, you watch something like The Hunger Games, and it's Theseus and the Minotaur, and then it turns into Spartacus, right? So it's very much in the world of mythology and this kind of stuff. And there are a lot of stories are like that. Unforgiven, the great cowboy, Western. It's the Iliad done as a Western. It's fabulous. So I see it all the time, but I realize a lot of my students, they're completely cut off from that old wisdom tradition. They just don't know it. So to them, the contemporary references read, and the older stuff doesn't. And for me, I'm getting more acquainted with the contemporary stuff and melding the two. Anyways.
Well, as it turns out, 3 of us are teachers in this room. In this virtual room, because Jim Van Pelt retired 2 years ago now, or last year?
2 years.
2 years ago. 3 years?
2 years.
2 years, okay. So, and a lot of stories over the years have featured students and teachers and in fantasy and science fiction and horror.
And some mythology.
Oh,
so, so Jim is going to read, you're going to read from the best of, and you're going to be doing a little sort of a preview to Christmas story, right? Sort of.
Yeah. Did you want me to go next? I thought I was going third.
I had you second. So
okay.
You're in the middle, and in the Fairwood website, your book's in the middle. So
all right. I'm ready. I can go.
So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if this
we'll mute and let you go. Go ahead.
If this works out, Patrick will put a link in the comments to a video of Fred Astaire dancing to a song called "Say It with Firecrackers" from the movie Holiday Inn, which is sort of integral to this story. I tell writers that I think the advice, write what you know, isn't particularly good, but I think write what you think about is particularly good as advice. And so I sort of dig through, what are my obsessions? And I realized that Holiday Inn, the Bing Crosby, Fred Astaire movie, is one that I watch every year, sometimes more than once a year. And I thought, what's my fascination with that? And that ended up with this story. This appeared first in Alfred Hitchcock's mystery magazine. They do publish ghost stories in Alfred Hitchcock's. And I sent it to the editor, and the editor wrote back and said, I love this story, but there's not a whiff of a crime in it anywhere. And it's a crime mystery magazine. Can you do something about that? So I changed 2 sentences and managed to insert a crime. You'll have to listen very carefully if you hear it at all. It's called The Sound of One Foot Dancing. I shook the chains holding the soundstage's side doors locked, then started the long walk through the darkened studio to check the front. The day had been a full one. Mr. Sandrich, the director, had the crew knock down the Lincoln Day set and assemble the 4th of July one. He didn't like 3 of the flats, and they had to be redone. The dancers and extras got antsy, and all the while the reporters were trying to get in to interview Fred Astaire about how he felt about yesterday's declaration of war. In the meantime, one of the cameramen had a son on the Arizona, and he didn't come to work because the Navy hadn't told him whether his boy was alive or not. So I doubled his studio security and camera grip. It was 3 a.m, and I should have been going home myself, but a percussive tapping from the Holiday Inn set kept me there. Tired as I was, I had to smile. Astaire was practicing by himself again. It didn't matter when Sandwich called a day, Astaire stayed to work. I'd heard he'd weighed 140 pounds when the picture started. The Paramount doctor said he was down to 126 and prescribed thick steaks, which were delivered from the commissary every night at 7 o'clock. He hardly touched them. The front doors were locked too, so I found a chair in the dark beside the set and watched Fred Astaire dance. Only one overhead spot was turned on that isolated him in its lighted circle. His hands were in his pockets, and he danced with one foot. The taps flew briskly, different rhythms, slow at first, a quick rattle, a steady syncopation. He switched, so now his other foot beat out a rhythm. His head was down. Soon, though, he started moving on the stage, more ice skating than dancing, in and out of the light. I relaxed into the seat. The steady tapping of his flashing feet lulled me and excited me, too. No one could be so tired that watching Fred Astaire wouldn't wake him. Without music, he made tunes. Without a partner, he made a duet. His hands were out, practicing one side of a routine I recognized. It was the part from Flying Down to Rio, where he and Ginger Rogers danced across 7 white grand pianos. He hummed the tune, turning, dipping and sliding in the light and out. I could almost see Ginger, dress flying, anticipating moves. He told me once, of course Ginger was able to accomplish sex through dance. We told more through our movements instead of the big clinch. We did it all through dance. Astaire accelerated. His feet hardly touched the stage, while his tapping seemed not to come from him, but to be an accompaniment. I'd seen him dance many nights, but not like this. One hand curled around an invisible waist, the other in the air, holding an invisible hand. Round and round through the light, brilliantly lit, and then back to the dark, a gray shape swirling, tapping, humming his musical part. Then he stopped. "Where'd you go?" he said, his voice echoing in the empty studio. "Where'd you go?" I cleared my throat. He jumped. He didn't know I'd been watching. "Where'd who go, Mr. Astaire?" "Is that you, Pop?" He shaded his eyes from the spot and peered toward me. "Yes, sir. Nice dancing, sir." "Where'd the girl go?" He looked at his empty hand, puzzled. "Girl, sir? We're alone. Studio's locked up." "There was a girl about yay tall, dark hair, round face." His voice trailed off. "We were dancing." I stood, my skin as cold as marble. "You must be tired, sir. It's time to go home." He looked at me, his forehead and cheeks white in the spot, his eyes deeply shadowed. Then he glanced behind him as if he'd heard a noise. "I was holding a girl. I could have swore." I rattled my keys. "It's been a long day, Mr. Astaire. I'll open the door for you." When he was gone, I crossed the cavernous space, past the Valentine Day set, through the little tree-lined road for the carriage ride where Bing Crosby sang Easter Parade to Marjorie Reynolds, through the Holiday Inn set itself. The Christmas tree was next to the piano. They do the White Christmas bit this week, and then to the north doors. They were secure. I knew they were, but I checked them anyway. When I came to the door, my hand trembled. The big deadlock turned stiffly. The door wasn't used much, and I pushed it open with my shoulder. Outside in the California night, I saw a narrow alley, a low wall, and on the other side, shining in the starlight, the glistening mausoleums and tombstones of the Hollywood Memorial Cemetery. Rudy Valentino was buried there, and so is Douglas Fairbanks. I also saw Lillian's grave, not so new now, tucked away inconspicuously next to the gaudier displays. Lillian, who answered a call for dancers last year, another anonymous girl hoping for a movie part, who lined up with the rest, who made the first cut because she wasn't too tall or too short or too fat, who waited for a chance to dance, and when they called her name, she stood, took her spot on the stage, put her hands on her hips, poised for the music to begin. Like 1,000 other girls over the years, I watched her because I always watched the dancers' auditions, except this time, for this girl, before the music started, she swayed and fell. The studio doctor got there within minutes. The other dancers, all hopeful, surrounded us. "She's gone," the doctor said. A dancer shrieked, "It was just sleeping pills. It couldn't have killed her." I learned that day how strong, how obsessive the Hollywood dream is. Lillian had looked like a shoo-in for the part. If she flubbed her audition, then the other dancer thought she'd have a better chance. So she'd slipped her the drugs. The doctor told me later, Lillian must have had a weak heart, Pop, for her to collapse that way. I don't know what killed her, but I don't believe it was a weak heart, not her heart. Lillian's tombstone glowed grayly among the others. There's something in the real dancers like Fred Astaire that won't quit, some steel-barred determination that keeps them on their feet long after the rest have gone to bed. I looked up and down the alley, the door's handle cool under my hand. Go to sleep, I said into the empty night. Go to sleep, Lillian. Quit coming back. Most of the sound stages at Paramount have a haunt or two. It's an old studio. The first film was shot there in 1917, DeMille's The Squaw Man. Casts by the hundreds have come through Paramount's gates, all those dreamers filling dreams, but doors swing open on empty stages. Equipment moves. An actress can walk from one spot to another 10 feet away and suddenly shiver. It's so cold here, she'll say, her hands wrapped around her arms. I saw Lillian the first time a week after she died, her back to me, standing in an open door. You can't be here, miss. We're closed, I said. Then she turned, and I recognized her as she faded away. She returned 2 or 3 times a week, looking sad. I followed her once, walking slowly from set to set. At the end, she met my eyes. I blinked, and she was gone. When I returned to the soundstage at noon, filming had already been going for 4 hours. Jimmy, the morning guard, told me that Astaire was waiting at the gates at 6 and danced for 2 hours before the rest of the cast arrived. Firecrackers popped within the studio. He's doing the 4th of July routine again, I asked. Jimmy shook his head, then nodded. The man's unstoppable. There was applause as I approached the set. The camera crew and extras clapped. Astaire stood in the middle of the stage, surrounded by wisps of firecracker smoke. Not right yet. Let's shoot it again, he said. Then he took his starting position behind the curtains. Mr. Sandrich looked like he wanted to say something, but he swallowed the thought, shrugged, and said, Cue the music. Take 21. Cameras. Action. Astaire came through the curtains, all movement and rhythm and timing. This was supposed to be a spontaneous routine. In the story, Marjorie Reynolds, his partner, doesn't show up, and 2 important Hollywood executives are in the audience. He grabs a handful of pocket torpedoes, and as he dances, he throws them against the ground, an explosive counterpart to his own pyrotechnics. It's the most amazing dance routine I'd ever seen. He turns, bam, he skips twice, does a half pirouette, bam, bam, he lights an entire string of firecrackers, then dances among the explosions, all to the music, all looking like he was making it up on the spot. It was stunning. When he finished, he didn't even appear to be breathing hard. Everyone applauded again. My hands sting with enthusiasm. No, it's still not right. Let's do it again. He disappeared behind the curtains. All in all, Astaire did the firecracker routine for the camera 38 times, and it was late at night before he said it was good enough. Only the essential crew members were left in the studio. Go home, boys, he said. I want to get in another step or 2. The light shut down except for the spot he danced to the night before. I checked the doors. In the years since she died, I'd never seen Lillian dance. She walked or stood. She found me, then locked her eyes on mine, straining to communicate a mute message from beyond her grave I never understood. Tapping came from the stage again. 1 foot. Hey, Pop, he said as I took a seat in the dark. Let's see if we can get a curtain call from our mystery dancer. He beat out his complicated 1-footed rhythm, hands deep in his pockets again. You know, my character in the film is searching for a dance partner. He changed to the other foot without breaking the beat. It scraped, skipped, heel-toed, variations on variation. I know what it's like to look for a partner. One dance, one supreme dance to glory. He sounded whimsical. Sometimes when the music starts, it's like, well, it's like... He trailed into silence, his eyes tracking off stage. Ah, he sighed. I couldn't see her. Why couldn't I see her? Astaire glided to center stage, offered his hand, curled the other around the small of her invisible back. I've seen Astaire dance with Ginger Rogers, with Eleanor Powell, Rita Hayworth, and Grace Kelly. He's redefined what a human can do with his body to music, but I'd never seen a dance like this. Not before, not since. And they danced. The room grew cold, not just a spot, but the whole studio, thousands of square feet. My exhalations were frosty plumes. I found that I was crying, the tears freezing on my cheeks, and I suddenly felt like an intruder, a peeping Tom. I left, walked through the Holiday Inn interior, the Christmas tree glittering in the little light. Bing Crosby's pipe lay on the piano top. I could almost hear him singing. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Then I exited. Now I stood in the Holiday Inn exterior. Impossibly, the snow machine above turned on. Oatmeal flakes tumbled down around me. I was freezing in a fake snowstorm while Fred Astaire danced with the ghost of a dead girl who never made it into the pictures. I unlocked a north door, crossed the alley, leapt the low wall, then walked home through the Hollywood Memorial Cemetery. I never went back to the studio. I mailed my resignation. They released Holiday Inn in August of 1942. A Japanese U-boat shelled the Santa Barbara oil refinery in January. Corregidor fell in May. We beat the Japs at Coral Sea and again at Midway, but the losses were terrible. In September, finally, I went to see the movie. Someone told me they'd seen me in the film, and I remembered that on a lark they'd used me in one scene. Didn't even change my name. I'm standing at a security door when the filming of the final Holiday Inn sequence starts, and I tell Fred Astaire and his agent they can't come in. I have one line. Behind the door, Bing Crosby and Marjorie Reynolds finally get together. If you watch the movie, you'll see me. But that's not what's important. I settled into the theater seat. The movie was pretty popular. That song, White Christmas, just seemed perfect for our boys overseas, but this was a weekday matinee and I almost had the house to myself. It's a sweet story. I'd almost forgotten. Bing Crosby loses his girl to Fred Astaire, and then he has a bad go of it as a farmer. Then he tries show business again at Holiday Inn, a nightclub only open on holidays. Crosby meets Reynolds, and they fall in love, only to have Astaire come along and try to steal her too. I waited for the 4th of July number. How would it play on the screen? Would anyone see that Astaire used 38 takes to look like he'd made it up on the spot? The scene approached. There is an ensemble song and dance number before Astaire's firecracker routine. I was watching, my eyes half closed. A line of girls come onto the stage from one side, a line of guys from the other. They're singing a patriotic tune about the 4th. The guys group at the back of the stage sing the bass line. Half the girls split off into the audience. The other half, 6 girls, have formed 3 pairs, backs to the camera. The first pair faces the audience to sing, "Let's salute our native land." The next pair turns, Roman candles in each hand. Then the last pair sings, "While the Yankee Doodle Band." I don't hear any more. I'm standing in the theater pointing at the screen. The girl on the right is Lillian. She sings and dances through the rest of the scene. It's Lillian. Astaire danced her right into the movie. He got her a part. Rent the video if you don't believe me. I never saw Fred Astaire again. After Astaire died at 88, Mikhail Baryshnikov said, "It's no secret we hate him. He gives us complexes because he's too perfect. His perfection is an absurdity." They buried him at Oakwood Memorial Park, not far from Ginger Rogers' grave. I wish they'd put him at Hollywood Memorial, where his real partner rests, the one who danced her way into Holiday Inn, the only one light enough on her feet to match him step for step. The end. You guys are all muted.
Wow. Okay. We're used to
Clapping.
we're used to silent
One
applause.
hand clapping.
Yes. Okay. Why is it not? There it goes. Okay. It's gone twice. I'm getting Fairwood Press from YouTube and Facebook, but that's the link that to the
I
firewood
don't see it
stance
on my
routine,
screen.
right?
Oh,
Okay. In the comments. Do you guys see it in the comments?
yeah, I got it.
Anyway,
I see it.
well, don't watch it yet, you guys, because we got to get Emily on there. But grab it for later and sit there. It's amazing, amazing dance routine. Absolutely love that story. All right. By the way, we're not beholden to an hour. We're trying to keep it close to an hour, but we're going to go a little over because we got to have Emily. Emily needs to be have her due. Yep. And that's fine. I think Ken and I this summer and Liz, we went an hour and a half and we had a good time. So, so awesome. So Emily, no green in this title, so my green screen doesn't mess that one up. Oh, look. Okay. 3, 4. No. Okay. Diagonal, at least on my screen. So you're going to read from this?
Yes.
I'm
going to read from the thing with the helmets. I will not finish. I will leave you in suspense.
Then that means they'll have to go buy the book.
Yeah, that's my ploy.
That's a good ploy. All right. Off you go.
Yeah. Okay. You couldn't talk about the helmets, which looked pretty ordinary, displayed in a glass case in the lobby of the Smash Pad, the converted mattress warehouse where we practiced. They sparkled in all the colors of the rainbow, embossed with punny names and covered in glitter like any well-loved derby helmet. And the only hint of the eldritch thing that happened, which no one would speak of, was a serious dent in the spiderweb pattern one on the bottom row. Well, that and the heavy-duty iron cage welded around the glass of the display case. When the thing happened, I was already skating at the smash pad basically all the time on the juniors team, and even a self-obsessed high schooler is going to notice when 15 members of the league all move away or get injured or quit derby in the same month. Spoiler alert, they died. The Smash Brats lost a lot of good coaches to the thing with the helmets. Still, it was nothing like the roller bugs. Let me back up. When I was 8 years old, my dad looked me up and down and declared that I was getting pudgy and needed a sport to keep me trim. Thanks, Dad, for the eating disorder. But he's dead now, so whatever. I guess I have the roller bugs to thank for that. First, we tried basketball, but I couldn't catch a ball to save my pathetic life. The same was true for soccer. Who'd have thought catching a ball with your feet wouldn't be easier than with your hands? I did like kicking the fuck out of the ball, but there was no place for such a one-hit wonder on a team. I always liked roller skating, so Mom thought I'd make a great figure skater. The failure of that one was entirely my own stubbornness. I hated the cold and threw epic tantrums to get out of those classes. As part of my bargain with her, I agreed to try ballet. I sort of liked it, but Dad said ballet was for sissies, and as much as I hate to admit it now, at that point I still cared about his opinion. I did my very best impersonation of a bull in a china shop, tripping the other girls whenever I could, stepping on their toes, and even kicking them with my purposely out-of-control pirouettes. Besides, ballet class was doing nothing good for my budding body dysmorphia. You think 9 years old is too young for bulimia? Then you've never been to a ballet class. The ballet studio asked me to leave. Mom wasn't mad. She was just disappointed. Although, sigh, she wasn't really that surprised that I'd managed to screw up again. Finally, like a dream come true, came roller derby. Despite the tights, it was definitely not for sissies. And it was roller skating, which I was pretty good at. And, though kicking and tripping were against the rules, sending another girl flying across the track with my pudgy hips was encouraged. I was in heaven. 11 years, 2 broken ankles, and about 1 million failed diets later, I was a proud blocker for the Smash Sisters. Mom no longer made comments about my weight because my blue hair, tattoo, happy 18th birthday to myself, and facial piercings bothered her a lot more than the extra 70 pounds of fat and muscle I carried around under them. Dad concern trolled me all the time, warning me about becoming diabetic like Aunt Peg and scowling when I ate cookies or ice cream. When he was home, that is, which wasn't much. It's funny how you can lose sight of the wider world sometimes. Inside Rollaway Rink, we were in our own microcosm, music blaring and fans cheering and the yells of players and coaches echoing and whistles screeching and the bark and chatter of wheels on the wood floor were all deafening. A nuclear bomb could have gone off down in the city and we would have missed it. As it turns out, that's kind of what happened. The rollerbugs didn't set off a nuclear bomb. After all, they intended to live on this shiny blue planet they'd found. But they did not intend to share it with us. Their ships tore into the sky, claws hanging from giant metal wings as they ripped their way through the city like a toddler on Christmas morning. They tore the tops off buildings and shook them until all the people toppled out. They rooted through neighborhoods like a bear tearing into a honeycomb, watching us scatter like totally pissed off bees. Except that they were the ones flying and stinging. They shot laser weapons that burned flesh instantly to dust. In short, they were sci-fi fucking monsters. They had decidedly not come in peace. Between the second half of the Beating Brontes versus Wicked Stepsisters bout and the first few jams of my team's bout against the Dash Wheels, my hometown was more or less obliterated. Our first clue that something was wrong was when Rollaway's roof was ripped clean off. Sunlight spilled in along with great chunks of ceiling tile and lightning fixtures. I was in the sin bin when it happened, and a head-sized bomb of debris crashed right into the NSO, timing my penalty, killing him. Missed me by 2 feet. Dust drifted down through the slanting sunlight like snow, and through it a rollerbug craft descended. People ran every which way, of course, like ants around a hill. Wails and cries could be heard over the music that now poured thinly out of only a few still functioning speakers. The exits were jammed. On the track, enough debris had fallen to make skating impossible, and those skaters had all gone down. They came up now, as I had from the box, as the women on the bench had, as the refs had, standing and staring at the new arrival with confusion and wonder. Other alien craft were busy blasting all the scrambling people with their death rays, colored beams visible in the air like effects at a rock concert. But the first ship just stared back. After a moment, it wobbled to the rink floor like a falling leaf, a ramp dropped out of it like a tongue, and we got our first glimpse of the roller bugs. The more astute of you might already have guessed what the aliens looked like from the moniker we gave them. We thought they were in costumes at first, because they made no damn sense. Wheels for feet, knobby joints, crazy pincher hands on their withery arms, big bulbous heads, and goggle eyes. There was something vaguely insectoid about them, but at the same time, it was like looking in a mirror. They rolled out of their ship onto the track, 5 of them. They were smaller than us, on average, but intimidating. We assumed the toy-looking weapons in their claws would atomize us. We stood there, mesmerized. We'd clumped together, we humans, but our curiosity, and theirs, was a bit stronger than our fear. Our team captain, Scara Thrace, picked her way forward until she was mere feet from the nearest roller bug. He was also sidling toward us. Was Scara about to become the first ambassador from Earth to another species? Maybe that was why she did it. Maybe it was like taking your hat off for the national anthem. Scara pulled out her mouth guard and stashed it under her left bra strap. Then she unclasped her helmet and pulled it off. The rollerbug's reaction was instant. They jumped back as though startled, started squawking to each other in a cacophony of sharp sounds, and the weapon in that forwardmost alien hand fired. Scara rained down to the track with all the other particles of dust. We ran for it like scaredy chickens. What else could we do? Skates made it harder to navigate the rubble and ruin of the city, but we didn't dare stop to change as we scattered toward our various homes. My home was kind of still there, the basement part anyway, and I found Mom hiding in it with neighbor Bruce and his 2 little kids, watching the end of the world on their phones. Thank all the gods I don't believe in that it was Mom's day off. The hospital she worked at had been completely destroyed, and the only thing keeping her from running out to the nearest standing hospital to pitch in, and probably get her own self killed in the process, was keeping Bruce from going out after Kel and abandoning their kids. Thanks, Bruce, sincerely, for your lack of chill. Mom can get under my skin, but I'd go crazy if she got herself vaporized. Who knows where Dad had been when the attack started? He never came home, and neither me nor Mom really minded. Things looked bad for humanity. We 4 spent the night down there in the basement, in a fort made of scavenged couch cushions and bedding, listening to water gushing from the house's severed pipes and waiting for the rollerbugs to find us. The next day, some actual news started to come in through our remaining smartphones, and I'll be damned if I wasn't part of it. It seems someone had remained in the rink with us when we almost made first contact, someone with the presence of mind to record the proceedings. It had gone epically viral. Like I bet every human being left on the planet with access to a still working phone and some couple bars of signal had seen it. And it was pretty clear to them, as it was to us, that the safest way to approach the rollerbugs was to do so wearing derby gear. So we watched, all of us humans, as an international diplomatic team skated hesitantly out onto the tarmac of some airport like a bunch of Bambis on ice, dressed in their brand new knee and elbow pads, wrist guards, and a rainbow of round helmets. Often, they'd fall. With rare exceptions, they looked foolish. It was a sad day for human dignity. But it worked, at least somewhat. A ship of rollerbugs spotted them and landed, and the aliens emerged like before, and this time no one took off their helmet, and they hesitantly, oh so hesitantly, began the work of first contact. It took months for the aliens and the humans to learn how to talk to each other. I can't remotely understand how they figured it out, but humans have been learning unfamiliar languages from each other for millennia, so I guess it's only a little more of a stretch to pick up a few phrases of rollerbug. The upside was that in the meantime, they stopped murderizing us. We understood that the peace might not last, but for the meantime, we were free to attempt surviving in our demolished cities without getting disintegrated, which was nice. They were hard months, but humans pulled together to restore things like supermarkets, which were more like farmers' markets now, and we huddled together in whatever shelters still had a few sides left to keep the weather out. Folks rigged electricity and sewers as best they could. Mom and I scavenged what we could from the house, which had been thrown into the backyard by one of those pterodactyl-clawed ships, and left the whole shebang alone. Mom wanted us to move into the shelter that had been set up at a local church, but I said, hell no. I pulled Mom along with me to the smash pad. It was entirely intact, one of the few buildings in town that was, and my teammates were already hard at work carrying sofas and mattresses and whatever else could be slept on over the torn up street to make a shelter of our track and lobby. Mom's face practically turned inside out when she saw the place, but I lied and said it had been cleaner before the attack. The lobby is where I found Skatey McSkateface, one of the meanest girls in our league, just kind of staring. It burned me up to see her standing there, not working, when she was always the one squawking loudly about other girls not pulling their weight while giving me side-eye, as if this fathlete wasn't always the first blocker her skinny ass looked to for offense on the track. Hey, I said, Barb needs help with the generator, and there's 2 different scavenging crews headed out now. Her body turned toward me, but not her eyes. Those were glued to the helmet that had belonged to Stabrina the Teenage Bitch, the Starjammer from the team that had succumbed to the thing with the helmets 2 years ago. It was my fault, Skatey said, a bare whisper. She turned to me. But I can fix it, she whispered. Her eyes were like ice cubes, if ice cubes could stare right through you. Cool, I said, and went out to schlep mattresses. And I will stop there. The end for now. To be continued.
Yay. Love that story. I know how it ends. Oh, okay. I guess I know how all of them end, and all of them in here, and
Yep.
in Bev's book, I know how it ends. But you guys don't, so out there in the audience, so you should go buy it, because why not, right? If there was only like we knew where to go, where to find it, you know, like it was a scroller or something. Oh, look!
And take this moment to appreciate Patrick's fancy tech too. Yeah.
I know, right? I was going to come in a spaceship, but you know that was just a little bit too much. Actually, and it's available. They're all available everywhere. Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Jim's is only available through Fairwood because it is extremely limited. So at least for now, we may down the road throw out some other versions. But yeah, that's and then also, which is kind of cool. And by the way, feel free if you guys have any questions, audience. If you have anything you want to ask, we'll hang on for.
There, it's say hi, can you?
Say hi, y'all. We've had good 9-10 dozen here and there, kind of popping in and out. I mean, the lie number changes once in a while, but so also today, you guys, let's see. I'm going to post. This is Mary Robinette calls my favorite bit that I get twice every time, which had Emily has an essay on that one, and also Beverly does on Genesis X, and then Emily, you also have one on John Scalzi's Big Idea. I think this is it's one whatever Scalzi.com. I think.
Can we see your friend?
What's that?
Bev's got a friend. Oh,
Bev's got a friend. Oh, Ramona. Okay, you know Ramona, Bev. All right, I got an error with something, but and then Jim, Jim Van Pelt has his favorite bit on that same website on Thursday, and Bev, you're on the Big Idea on Thursday, and Jim, you're on the Big Idea next week on the 18th. So I'm pretty impressed that you guys they said yes to both the Big Idea and My Favorite Bit, which are great venues for cool cool books and some essays behind the big ideas and favorite parts of books. All 3 of them on both places. So that's awesome. Okay, readings. Thank you guys. Yeah. Any questions?
Jim,
Hey,
you're
John.
muted.
Hey, John. Who's muted?
Jim and Bev are both muted, actually.
Okay, you guys got to unmute. I'll unmute you. You guys can do it you can do it yourself, you know.
Oh, there.
Okay, you're.
So I see John and Andy and Ramona all said thank you for the readings.
Thank you for coming.
And
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Any
Thank you.
questions? Anyone out there for these guys? Since we've got them, I mean, come on. When's the next time we're going to see 3 of these guys in the same place? So, well, sort of in the same place.
Well, I'm curious, to Bev, how you got into doing police procedural type writing and film.
Yeah, well, it was a stretch. I'm very much not a homicide detective. Although when I shoot, I do a lot of shooting, and which I started actually for Eddie, and And then when we worked in film, we had consultants and gun experts and all, and homicide cops as consultants. So I was picking up stuff mostly for the New York side, but I picked up some LAPD, and that got me thinking. And I've started doing more gun training and all. It's all cops from SWAT, retired SWAT and all that. So it's very intense. But for me, but I really found it very interesting.
Such a massive genre in
stuff.
TV and everything.
Just thought, yeah. Well, we spend a lot of time on cop shows on TV. So with all that, but I have to say, Jim, you got me thinking, because I did meet Fred Astaire once, very briefly, in a. So I'll have to, Unfortunately, I danced with Jimmy Stewart, not Fred Astaire, but I met Fred Astaire, not very glamorous. He was just buying toilet paper in the drugstore. You want the dance, right? But, but.
We got a couple questions.
It was
here
wonderful.
Too. John's asking, what were the two sentences that implied a crime? I don't know who that's directed to. Was that
when
for
Lillian collapsed and the doctor said she's gone, one of the other dancers said they were just sleeping pills. They couldn't have done that to her. And the next sentence says, she slipped him the sleeping pills, so it would mess up her audition and kick her out of running for the part. So that was the crime. That was an accidental killing in the middle of these auditions.
Cool. Here's a question for all of you. All four of us. So does that mean me? Oh, I don't know. You guys go ahead. What books or authors are you raving about recently?
Let me see. I have Carrie Vaughan's The Ghosts of Lockley on my desk. I'm really looking forward to reading it. It's a story of Robin and Marion's children, and it's sort of a sequel to Robin Hood. And I think that'll be really cool. And also, I've had it on my to-be-read desk forever, but I'm reading Connie Willis's Crosstalk, and everything she writes is great. So I know this is going to be a good, couple days of reading.
I have a copy of that. She signed it to me at Mile High when it came out that year.
Yeah, mine's signed. It's really nice to get signed books.
Nice. No.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm trying to project through my camera. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
It seemed pointed, I thought.
Yeah.
Emily, Bev, any recommendations? What you've been reading?
Yeah, well, let's see. Like I said, the big stack of books. I just got the best fantasy and sci-fi stories, that anthology for 2020 and 2019, and same for mysteries. So those just arrived. So I'm, starting in on those. I thought that'll be some fun reading. I'm only about 70 pages into the Book of Dust in the fantasy world for Philip Pullman. And then I want to read the new Susanna Clark that I haven't gotten to yet, because I love Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell on the fantasy side. And then on thrillers, I want to read the new Daniel Silva, espionage thriller and stuff. The Mossad agent, who's also an art restorer. It's really fun. So that kind of thing. Yeah.
One recent favorite was The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newitz. I highly, highly recommend that. Good friend of mine, Laura Dixon, put out a collection called Welcome to the Bitch Bubble. I'd be a terrible friend if I didn't encourage everyone to go buy/read that. Let's see.
From Hydra House, right?
Hydra House.
Hydra House, yep.
Yep. The Semiosis Duology by Sue Burke was... No one's nodding.
I've heard it.
Very cool. Takes place on an alien planet. Very biology, plants and stuff. Yeah. The Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Kowal. So that was great. Those are some.
Cool.
Oh God, I have so much I need to read.
There's always a lot to read. Yeah, and during the COVID, when it first started in March, and our school, everything was closed down, I was doing I didn't get any writing done, but I was reading a ton, like 30 books, and another 15, 20 during the summer, and then the school year started and it went way down. So I'm listening to one book always on the commute, into school. Well, there's no kids here, but I like to work from here. And one on the bedstand, which is always slow. I'm actually reading what's called Good Morning Midnight, which I had it on my shelf a while, about halfway through. I only started saying I should probably read that because the movie with George Clooney's coming out, which is called Midnight Sky or something like that. Instead, they renamed it. Before that, a couple of books back, I finished finally a couple of years late. Richard Powers is The Overstory, Pulitzer Prize winner. Whew, boy, that's a heavy book. I love that book. Trying to think. Attica Locke. Have you guys read any of her mysteries? Or I thought maybe Bev might know her. Set in East Texas. First one's called Bluebird, and then I read the second one a little bit ago called Heaven My Home, and then it was Blacktop Wasteland was another mystery that came out recently. It was really good. And what am I reading now? I just N.K. Jemisin's newer one, The City We Became.
Oh yeah.
And I actually, yeah, it's really good. Well, and it's probably going to be on the ballot for next year for a lot of the awards. And then I made it a point, of course, this is back a ways, to read all the Hugo nominees, all 6 of them, and I made it. And that was really good crop of books, but that's a ways back. But yeah, I never get enough time to read. Not during as the quarter is ending, and I have essays to grade now and short stories from my creative writing kids coming in, and there it goes. Yes. Anybody else have a question out there? You guys have a question for anybody else? We still got people hanging out for each other.
I have a question. I wondered, it was something, we're doing these interviews and things got me thinking some of the questions. And I know about the genesis for stories when I know you're dealing with anthologies there, so the answer might be different for each story. But do you notice a pattern in the way you start a story? Do you tend to be drawn to the character first, or to the plot, or to setting? Is there any pattern, or does it vary for you depending on the story?
I did an experiment a couple of years back that I started at the Rainforest, which was to follow Bradbury's advice to write a story a week for a year. Mm-hmm. It was his advice to young writers, and I'd been writing selling for 25 years, but it still sounded like pretty good advice. So I thought I'll try to do that, write a story a week for a year, because as Bradbury said, nobody can write 52 bad stories in a row. So I did it, and I noticed that inspiration comes from all over the place. And I noticed it because I was doing the stories quickly enough that the last few were still sort of in my head when I tackled the next one. So it could come from a setting. I took a hike up at Rainforest to this little sort of mountain cemetery that's not too far from the resort. And somebody had hung a happy birthday balloon on a tombstone. And that started the first story of the 52, just that image of somebody visiting. And it was an old tombstone. Whoever been there been buried for 25 years. So I just imagined a balloon showing up every year by somebody who survived this person. It could come out of lifelong obsessions. Like I told you, I write about the things I think about. And I just love the old Tom Corbett Space Cadet books when I was a little kid. So I was sorry there were only I think 10 books in the series. That was it. And they're pretty short books. So I wrote a sequel, which was the continuing saga of Tom Corbett Space Cadet. Of course,
it's a great one.
Tom Corbett in it. It had a little girl named Tamika Corbett who loved the Tom Corbett books. And she only discovered them because people who were old kept calling her Space Cadet. She wanted to know what that was about. A variety of things gets me into stories. I never know. Sometimes it's an overheard piece of conversation. I heard somebody once, it's a long story to get to this line, so I won't tell it, but the line was, "It's not my fault I fell in love." And that line just got in my head like an earworm. It's not my fault I fell in love. I ended up writing 2 stories that came out of that. So inspiration comes from a lot of places.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think for me too. But that's really, really, really interesting. And what about you, Emily? How do you get going on your stories?
Particularly because your voice is because you're so funny. You're
Oh, am
wonderful, wonderful. No, I'm just saying Emily's stories are
Yes.
wonderfully comic and just wacky fun, but serious at the same time.
Yeah, they don't come from any one source. But in looking at my stories and reading all of them in a row and putting them in an order to send to Patrick, I did learn that there are a lot of common things that I do in stories. Almost all of them are in first person, and it's very much about voice, very much inside a character's head. And like I tend to have a very similar emotional note that I am trying to strike, I think, in the stories. So
I noticed that too. Every time I've done a collection, but certainly this last one where I'm looking at all these stories, there are 62 stories in the book. I don't think I've ever written a single story that doesn't have the word gray in it. Gray shows up. And for a
You're right, it does.
word, I use the word silhouette about every third story. And so, yeah, I noticed patterns. I was looking at really old files of stories today that were pre me publishing, and I saw themes in those things that are totally unpublishable that showed up later, 25 years later, and I didn't even think about. I'd already written kind of something about that much earlier. So my sister is a therapist. One of my sisters is a therapist, and I just think writing a collection of short stories is an open confession to a therapist of all of your neurosis and paranoia.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because it's like when you're writing one story, maybe there are some elements from your life that you've picked out to put in it, but like no one would say it's about you because you put in all this other crazy stuff. And then another story has different elements.
Oh, if you write in first person, they'll start assuming.
But when you put them all together in a book, it's very much like, oh shoot, there's.
I don't think I've ever written a story in first person because I taught high school. Eventually some high school student is going to ask me, Mr. Van Pelt, did you ever do that? Or did you ever think that? Or did you ever, because I worried about that being a public school teacher, publishing stories in the adult magazines. I don't always write stuff that's particularly high school safe. So, I always flinched a little when I wrote one of the stories. In fact, I had a story that went in my last collection that Patrick wanted to put in my first collection. And I wouldn't do it because it was definitely R-rated, and I just couldn't put it in.
Yeah, I said my librarian will probably want it in the school library, and then that story will be in there.
And I'll get fired.
But eventually, I got him to put it in one of them. Plant Life. If you guys want to know, it's called Plant Life. Buy the book just for Plant Life.
I'll turn right to that.
R-rated.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's quiet in the chat. No burning questions.
Yeah. No, that was a good question, though.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in everybody else's, how does this thing happen?
Me too. Yeah.
Doing a novel, you stay at home with the characters and the thoughts and the plot for so long. But a novel for me grows like glacial creep. And so to get through a page, I'm going to think about that page 100 times longer than it would take me to think about it when I'm reading. And there's so much, it's proof rock. There's time for 1,000 decisions and indecisions as I'm writing.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm fascinated by that. And I have to admit, it's one thing I really liked about these little interviews and things too, because you get into your own rabbit holes, but then you have other people's questions, and I'm going, oh, well, let me think about that. Let me step outside and think about how I do approach something, and on the stories I've written versus the book and all that. And other books and stuff that I hope to write and all that. And it's interesting, but I like to learn about other people, and other writers and how you all approach it. And it's just a different way. And it also gives you different ideas on things to try for, another.
I recommend the writing fast for a while, just to do it. Because the nice thing about a story a week is you can't get too invested in the success of the story. You just have to write the story and tell it and get it done, because in another week you got to jump to another story. And that's wonderfully freeing to do that. I mean, it's liberating. I was in a writer's group with a guy that wrote one story and he sent it to Interzone. And then Interzone can be very slow in replying. The whole time he was in the writer's group with him for 2 years, he wouldn't write another story because he was so concerned about the fate of the first one. He'd come to every meeting and say, well, I haven't heard anything back. And that was he did good story critiques for other people, but he was killing himself because he couldn't write a story, finish it, and move on to another.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here, see, I was so happy I wrote 2 short stories this year. But I'm like, wow, write one a week. Oh, my God.
We have a question from Ramona here. When you write in first person, do you ever switch characters? How do you make it obvious to the reader that you changed characters?
Well, in a short story, I don't know that I've ever used 2 different first person characters.
I haven't either.
It's such a short piece already that.
Yeah. Well,
I haven't in my 2 novels either.
Yeah, Eddie, it's in first, and I'm trying to stay in Eddie's skin through the whole thing. So part of the reason I wanted to do that is because there are certain blind spots that he has. So I don't want to tell things from other people's view, and that I want to stay in his head with it. Other things I've written, though, I tend to write in closely written third. And that's, that way you get that character's view, but you see a little bit outside, and then, you can switch from one character to another. If it's a book, you can go chapter by chapter, sort of the Game of Thrones idea, where each chapter is from a different character's point of view or something.
Yeah, I've definitely done that in novels, writing from different perspectives, unpublished novels. And like giving them a different voice so that you have to make sure that their thoughts sound different. And then you can really cheat in a novel and just like have the title of that chapter be the character's name. So that
Yeah,
my
first.
It's a great thing to share with the reader. Clarity is our number one.
Clarity.
Writing.
My first novel, when it went to David Hartwell at Tor, was 2 alternating first-person viewpoints, and it was actually David who said one of them needs to be third. So this one is on the stage more. He should be the first. This one should be third. It'll help to find the voices better, because there was a little bit of too similar between them, and it helped a lot. So, and there's a lot of people who'll do that first and third. The late John Pitts would do his Sarah Buhal books. She was first person, and anybody else point of view was third person. So, what makes you cringe as a reader?
I'm
My first draft.
What was that?
My first draft always makes me cringe.
Does that make you cringe as a reader or cringe as a writer?
Both.
Oh yeah, that might be you.
Write it, don't you feel you write it and you're like, oh God, you're like Homer, you're like Shakespeare, and then you let it sit for a couple days and you come back and you say, oh my God, it reads like your 3rd grade writing is awful. I'm gonna start all over. So it makes me cringe. But
that's funny. I quite often have the opposite reaction. Like when I'm writing something, it feels really hard and bad. And then if I let it sit a while, sometimes I like it better. That's off the question though.
I've seen most writers fall into one of those 2 camps. You either finish something and think it's brilliant and you must share it immediately. And then you wait a few days and some perspective comes in and you go, oh no, I need to fix this. Or you're the other kind who everything you finish is pure crap. And then you put it away for a few days and then you say, well, maybe it's not quite pure. There's a salvageable spot here and there. I know as a reader, I read a lot of short fiction, and when I've been doing editing, I read slush, and as a teacher, of course, I read student stuff. And things that drive me crazy sometimes are really easy things to fix, like the same word repeated multiple times, or an overuse of all the be verbs. So every sentence is based on am, is, are, was, were, be, being, or been. I also see holes in manuscripts that bug me a lot, where I said, well, the writer finished this paragraph, but it really needed to have something about the setting in it. Get me grounded in here. You're just a floating voice. So there are all kinds of things that bug me as a reader. What I get more excited about is the stuff that turns me on as a reader. right? Because I can find plenty of stuff that bugs me. It's the stuff that turns me. Kat Rambo had a short story in Daily Science Fiction just a couple days ago that I just loved. It would have done well in your book, Emily. It was about dealing with living forever.
Well, she's got her own fabulous short story collections.
Oh,
Actually.
yeah.
So,
But
yeah.
what I like about her is her writing line, her narrative line, her language line is so pure and straightforward. You're just reading it. You go, there's not an extra thread dangling there. There isn't an offbeat in her sentences. She's just fun to read. And she's not particularly poetic. She's just clear. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I thought of one thing that makes me cringe as a reader is when there's something that the character hasn't figured out that I have very easily, and they're supposed to be a smart character, and I feel like the author is lying to me.
Yeah.
Trying to make there be a mystery that's not that mysterious. That's one.
I see that a lot in, like, I've been reading a lot of rough drafts of high school short stories. And I'm going like, so, all right, I knew it was this guy, page 2, and here you are 12 pages later, you know. Also, my favorite comment to put in, and I always tell kids, if I had $1 for every time I said comma splice, you know, it's like, seriously, really? Oh, and one person's plot online, I said, oh, good, this will be the 5th zombie story this quarter. So, yeah, kids, them kids.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap it up here. We're about an hour and a half, and let these guys get to bed. Well, if you're on the East Coast, you need to.
Yeah, I'm up for an extra hour. You guys are all going to bed soon. Emily,
Hey, I have
right?
I have no school tomorrow. So I can be up late grading paper. Oh shoot. Maybe I'll go to bed.
What was that,
You
Jim?
never go to bed. Emily, you live near
No.
Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, both my boys live in Washington. 2 of my 3 boys live in Washington. Beverly, where are you?
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, yeah. You guys, you might still have sunlight outside. It's
Gosh,
dark.
you know,
No, not since the time change, and I don't know why we're still doing the time change back and forward. But we lost the sun at about 5:30 or so, I think.
Okay.
Start getting dark, maybe
Oh,
6.
yeah, all right.
So I think that I was going like, okay, well, once I finally said, oh, we're going to go over, and that's okay, let's go on. I kind of forgot to read the bios for Jim and Emily before their stories.
Well, that's okay.
But Jim writes a shit ton of stories, as they would say. And
Yeah, I tell my
live
kids that all the time in high
Yep.
school.
Live in Colorado. If you don't know Jim, Nebula Award finalist, John W. Campbell Award finalist, Pushcart Prize nominees, best books, and all that kind of stuff, and many stories, as you said, hundreds, right? Yep. And Emily lives here in North Seattle, north of me, the other side of Seattle. I'm in South Seattle, Europe, North Seattle, and stories in Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Clark's World. Those are great markets. Strange Horizons, also daily science fiction. I keep forgetting you have an MFA in creative writing.
Yep.
Where did you get that from?
Roosevelt University in Chicago.
Roosevelt in Chicago. Oh, awesome.
But I went to my undergrad in SoCal, Bev, at University of Redlands.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Redlands, did you say? Yeah.
Redlands, yeah.
Yeah.
In the IE.
I know. I'm in the 818 out in the valley. So
Emily,
Yes.
3 of those markets are ones I've never appeared in. I'm jealous. Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Strange Horizons, and Clark's World. I have knocked on those doors a lot.
Yeah. Thanks. I was like, it's a fluke. I don't know. Strange Horizons was my first pro sale.
Oh, awesome.
And it came like many years before my second pro sale. So I was like,
And now you have a collection.
I got the Campbell Award. Bye.
fantastic.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, cool. There we are. There's those books, everybody. Find them at fairwoodpress.com or wherever awesome books can be bought. Online or your favorite independent bookstore. They'll special order for them too. I know they will. So get out there and keep reading because books. Right? Books. Gotta have books.
Look,
All right. Any last words? Should we
Thank
get
you,
out of here?
thank you,
Thank you.
Hey, Janet, it's coming. You didn't get your package yet because you had like 4 of them, so it should be there. But post office is slow. Sorry, Janet.
Soon.
I think yours is in the last batch that went out, so you might get it soon.
Hope.
You know Janet, don't you, Jim?
Yeah, Janet's my therapist sister.
I thought that might be the case.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She's also a good first reader for me. I send her all my stuff, and then she writes back and said, "You've never really gotten over your childhood, have you, Jim?" No, that's not true. She gives me good suggestions sometimes.
Excellent.
If I think I want to get home, Janet, I'll check tracking and let you know. I think I have your email too. So not waiting patiently. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I blame COVID. All right, you guys, we're gonna end the broadcast here. Thank you all for coming. Readers, we're gonna hang on after the broadcast ends just to debrief and say goodnight with us. So thank you very much again, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great night.
I don't know where to put my hand.
I know. Just everywhere.
Oh yeah, the jazz
I
hand.
can.
Yeah.
I should probably just. I should get into my. I need to get into my spaceship here and get ready to fly out. See, there we go. We're ready to fly out of here. All right, bye everybody. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Go buy
Bye.
books. Go buy books.